The royal challenge, the hall of the Galactic Council, was vast, a cathedral of light and stone that stretched higher than the eyes could follow. Alien banners floated above the chamber, each representing empires older than human history. The air carried the weight of power, every whisper echoing like thunder against the marble walls. It was a place where decisions of entire galaxies were made, and today a choice unlike any other was about to happen. The alien princess stood at the center of the hall, her silver crown shimmering under the glowing crystals. Her eyes were sharp, proud, and unyielding. Her presence demanded silence even among the arrogant lords. She was young, but carried herself with the confidence of a ruler born in the bloodline of conquerors. Today she was to choose her champion, a warrior who would stand at her side in trials, wars, and the games of power. The council chamber overflowed with expectation. Alien nobles filled the rows, their jeweled robes shining. Mighty warriors stood in their armor, polished blades and weapons strapped across their bodies. They were the strongest from every empire, scarred champions who had fought in countless battles. The galaxy believed that one of them would be chosen, because who else could be worthy? In one corner of the chamber, the humans stood. They were newcomers to the stars, deathworlders with little respect among the great empires. Whispers filled the air like venom, mocking tones dripping with scorn. "Humans are fragile," hissed a scaled noble. "Their bones break too easily. They are desperate creatures, born of a cursed world," another sneered. To the council, humans were little more than curiosities, useful only for minor roles. Yet among them stood the youngest warrior, barely more than a boy. His armor was too large, the metal shoulder plates almost swallowing him whole. But his eyes were steady, his hands did not shake. He stood like a stone in a storm, silent but unyielding. Others whispered he was inexperienced, untested, and unworthy. But his silence carried a weight no one could measure. The princess walked slowly along the line of warriors, her gaze moving from alien champions to the human soldiers. She paused before each, her expression unreadable. Some bowed proudly, others flexed their strength hoping to impress her. Every noble leaned forward, waiting for her to choose one of their own. It was tradition, it was expected, and it was the only path they would accept. But the princess was not like them. She had seen too many proud warriors fail, too many so-called champions crumble. Her eyes searched not for polished armor, nor for shining blades. She searched for something deeper, something rare, something the galaxy had forgotten. The chamber grew quiet as she reached the end of the line. There, standing among the humans, was the youngest warrior. His armor dented, his weapon plain, his face still carrying the softness of youth. Gasps rose from the nobles. Laughter broke from the lords. "Surely not him," a voice mocked. "The boy barely knows how to hold a blade," another sneered. "If she chooses him, she shames her crown." The princess stopped in front of the boy, her eyes locked onto his, searching, measuring, testing. The young warrior did not look away. He did not flinch. In that silence, something passed between them, something no one else could understand. The boy was not the strongest, not the tallest, not the most skilled, but there was fire in his eyes, a fire that refused to die. The princess raised her hand and the hall froze. Every noble leaned forward, every warrior held his breath. Her voice rang out, sharp and clear, "He will be mine." She pointed directly at the youngest human warrior, her finger unwavering for a heartbeat. The entire galaxy seemed to stop. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Whispers turned to shouts. The nobles were in disbelief. Warriors growled in anger. The council roared with outrage, their voices shaking the walls. "Impossible," shouted one. "She cannot mean the human. She insults our empires," cried another. "She insults tradition itself." But the princess stood firm, her voice calm, her choice unshaken. The young human warrior felt the weight of 1,000 eyes burn into him. His heart thundered in his chest. But he bowed deeply. He had been chosen, though he did not yet know why. He did not speak, he did not question. He only accepted with honor. The galaxy had laughed at humanity, mocked their weakness, but now, before all, a princess of the greatest empire had chosen one of them. The council chamber, once filled with certainty, now trembled with fear. Something had shifted, something irreversible. The galaxy stood in shock, and in that moment, the fate of empires began to change. The unexpected choice. The council chamber did not calm after the princess's words. It grew louder, voices rising like a storm. Alien nobles shouted, their jeweled robes swaying as they stood in outrage. The warriors pounded their weapons against the floor, demanding justice for what they saw as an insult. To them, the princess had betrayed tradition. She had mocked centuries of honor. She had chosen not a champion of the great houses, but a fragile boy from a death-world species. The princess raised her hand once more, and silence fell like a blade. Her gaze cut through the council. Cold and unshaken, "Do you question my right?" she asked, her voice echoing across the chamber. None dared to answer, for she was blood of the royal line, chosen by the sacred flame. But doubt and fury still smoldered in their eyes. They could not believe what had just happened. The young human warrior stood frozen, his heart beating like a war drum. He had never imagined this moment, never dreamed that the fate of galaxies would turn toward him. He felt unworthy, yet at the same time a strange fire burned inside. The princess's eyes had not chosen by mistake. She had seen something. Though he did not yet understand, he bowed once again, accepting the destiny that was now placed upon his shoulders. A noble with crimson skin and golden eyes stepped forward. His voice was thick with venom. "Princess, you shame your empire," he pointed at the boy, his claws glinting under the light. "That child cannot stand among warriors. He will break at the first strike." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The boy lowered his eyes, but the princess spoke before anyone else. "He will not break," she said simply. Her words were calm, but there was steel in them. "I do not need a giant who swings an axe without thought. I do not need a beast who only knows how to kill. I need someone the galaxy does not understand. Someone who carries fire in silence." Her declaration silenced the chamber once more. The nobles clenched their fists, furious but unable to oppose her directly. She was the crown's heir, and her word was law still. Whispers spread quickly, sharp and poisonous. "She is mad," some said. "She is bewitched by the humans," others muttered. "This will destroy her reign before it begins." The boy was escorted forward by royal guards. His steps echoed across the marble floor, each one heavier than the last. He felt the eyes of countless enemies upon him. Some looked at him with scorn, others with curiosity. Yet in that sea of judgment, the princess's gaze was steady. She did not doubt him. And that strength became his own. The council leader, an elder with skin like stone, raised his staff. His voice carried the weight of centuries. "The princess has chosen." He struck the floor and the sound shook the hall. "The galaxy bears witness to her will." With those words, the decision became law, but law did not erase hatred. When the council was dismissed, the nobles scattered like shadows. Their whispers filled the corridors, their plans already forming. Assassins would be hired, challenges would be made. The human boy had not only been chosen, he had been marked. Every step he took would now be hunted. Every breath he drew would be questioned. The princess walked beside him through the crystal halls. Her crown shimmered, her robe flowing like a river of stars. She spoke softly, yet her words carried great weight. "You are confused, young warrior," she said. "You do not know why I chose you, and the galaxy will never forgive me for it." He glanced at her, his voice quiet. "Why me, princess?" She stopped, turning to face him fully. Her eyes shone with something deeper than pride, something fierce. "Because you are human," she said. "You are from a world that tried to kill you every day. You are not the strongest here, not the fastest, not the oldest. But you are what they fear most." The boy frowned. Not understanding, the princess smiled faintly, though her smile carried no joy. "They fear what they cannot predict. The great empires are bound by rules, by honor, by tradition, but you humans, you break rules, you bend the impossible. You rise when you should fall, and that is why I chose you." Her words struck him harder than any weapon. He felt both honored and burdened. He knew now that this was not simply about her choice. It was about changing the course of history itself. The weight was greater than his armor. Yet he did not turn away. He walked beside her, ready to face whatever came far above in the highest towers of the council palace. The galaxy's rulers watched the two figures walk together, some with anger, some with fear, some with cold calculation. The choice had been made, but the storm it unleashed was only beginning. For the first time, whispers of human destiny spread beyond Earth, and in the hearts of many, unease turned to dread. The unexpected choice had been made, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The weight of doubt. The choice spread like wildfire through the galaxy. Every news channel, every transmission, every whisper carried the same shocking words. The alien princess chose a human boy. Not the strongest alien champion, not a seasoned general, but the youngest human warrior. The stars themselves seemed to tremble with disbelief. On alien worlds, nobles laughed and mocked. "This is madness," they said. "The humans have bewitched her." Others clenched their fists in fury, believing it was an insult to their traditions. For thousands of years, champions had been chosen from the greatest houses, never from outsiders, never from a species considered weak. But the boy was no longer free of their gaze. He had become a target, wherever he walked in the palace halls. Alien eyes followed, some burned with hatred, some with curiosity, some with cold calculation. He felt the weight of those stares press on his back like a heavy stone. In the training grounds, warriors tested him with cruel eyes. They sneered at his human armor, plain and dented. One alien champion laughed as he passed. "Careful, boy. The wind might break you," another whispered. "He will not survive a week." The boy said nothing, his silence becoming both his shield and his curse. At night, when he was alone, the doubts grew louder. Why me, he asked himself. He was not the strongest among humans, nor the most skilled, yet the princess had chosen him. Was it pity? Was it a mistake? Or was it something deeper? He clenched his fists, trying to quiet the storm in his mind. The princess, however, remained unshaken. She walked the halls with her head high, her silver crown glowing in the starlight. When the nobles questioned her, she answered with silence or with fire. Her voice cut through their protests. "My choice is final." Yet even she knew the danger was only beginning. One evening, she called the boy to her private chamber. The walls shimmered with crystal light. The air smelled of strange flowers. She looked at him, her eyes sharp yet filled with something softer. "You feel the weight of their doubt," she said. The boy nodded slowly, unable to hide his turmoil. "I do, princess. I am not sure I can carry it." Her lips curved into a faint smile, but her gaze was fierce. "You already carry it," she replied. "Every glare, every whisper, every insult, you endure it. That is why I chose you. Not because you are perfect, but because you rise where others fall." Her words sank deep into his heart, lighting a spark of resolve. Perhaps he was not chosen for what he was, but for what he could become. But the galaxy did not share her faith. In hidden chambers, nobles plotted. They gathered in silence, cloaked in shadows. "This human cannot be allowed to rise," one growled. "He threatens the order of our empires," hissed another. Their voices mixed with greed, fear, and anger already. Plans of betrayal began to take root. Meanwhile, among the humans stationed in the capital, doubt also spread. His own comrades whispered behind his back. "Why him and not one of us?" they asked. "He is too young, too untested. This will end in shame, even among his people." He felt alone. The weight grew heavier, pressing against his spirit like iron chains. Yet in the training grounds, something began to change. When sparring with alien warriors, he was pushed to his limits. He was knocked down again and again, but every time he rose. His body bruised, his breath ragged, but his eyes refused to dim. Some aliens began to watch in silence. Their mockery fading, they did not yet respect him, but they could not deny his will. One night, after a brutal sparring match, the boy collapsed in the courtyard. The stars above burned like distant fires. He thought of Earth, of his people, of how the galaxy saw them as weak, and he whispered to himself, "If I fall, they will laugh at all of us." That thought gave him strength. Strength beyond his own doubt, he rose once more, staggering but unbroken. From her balcony, the princess watched. Her eyes glimmered with something rare, pride. She knew the galaxy would not understand yet, but she also knew a storm was building. This boy, this human, carried more than his own weight. He carried the honor of an entire species. The nobles could plot, the warriors could mock, but the princess believed, and her belief was a flame that would not die. Still, the shadows of betrayal grew deeper, and in the silence of the palace, knives were already being sharpened. The boy stood at the center of it all, weighed down by doubt yet lifted by resolve. He did not yet know how heavy the crown's choice truly was, but soon he would find out, for the galaxy was preparing its trial, and his every step would decide the fate of more than himself. Training of the chosen. The palace training ground stretched like a battlefield carved into stone. Towers rose around the field, watching eyes hidden behind windows of crystal every day. Warriors from across the galaxy trained there, their strength shaking the very air, and now at the command of the princess. The youngest human warrior was among them. From the first day, the others sought to break him. They struck harder, pushed faster, mocked louder. To them he was prey, a fragile creature to humiliate. His armor was plain, his sword simple, his body smaller. When they knocked him down, they laughed. When he stood back up, they sneered even more. But the boy did not answer their laughter with words. He answered with silence. He rose again and again. His breath ragged, his body bruised. Every fall was a lesson. Every strike a scar, he learned quickly, adapting with the instinct of a death worlder. While they boasted of their power, he endured pain as if it were air. The princess watched from the high balcony each day. Her eyes followed every movement, every failure, every rise. Others asked her why she wasted her time on a human child. She only answered with silence, her gaze never leaving him. In her heart, she knew he was shaping into something the galaxy feared. Not the strongest, not the most skilled, but the most relentless. His training was not only with weapons. The alien masters tested him with poisons, with heat, with gravity that crushed his chest. They starved him, deprived him of sleep, challenged his mind with alien puzzles, and still he endured. Sometimes he collapsed, trembling on the stone floor. But when the sun rose, he returned, his eyes steady once more in quiet hours. The princess spoke to him. Her voice was calm but sharp, like steel wrapped in silk. "They will never accept you," she said. "They wait for you to fail. They hope for it. They dream of it." The boy nodded, his face shadowed with exhaustion. "Then I must not fail," he answered simply, and his words carried more weight than any oath. But while he trained, the shadows moved in secret. Nobles gathered in hidden halls, their robes drawn tight around their faces. "He grows stronger," one whispered. "We must stop him before he becomes a symbol. If he survives, the princess will rise beyond our control," hissed another. They spoke of poison, of blades in the dark, of challenges arranged to end his life. The boy did not know it yet, but his every breath was already being hunted. One night, as he returned to his chamber, footsteps echoed behind him. 3 alien warriors emerged from the shadows, their blades drawn. They smiled cruelly, circling him like predators. "No crown will protect you, human," one hissed. "Tonight your story ends." The boy felt fear in his chest, cold and heavy, but he remembered the princess's words. "They wait for you to fail." He gripped his simple blade, his hands trembling but firm. The fight was brutal, the aliens stronger, faster, their blades sharper. They struck him down again and again, his body bleeding, yet every time he fell he rose, his eyes burning brighter. He fought not with skill, but with desperation, with raw instinct. He dodged when he should have fallen, he struck where no one expected, and in the end 2 lay wounded. One fled in terror. The boy stood shaking, bloodied but alive. The princess arrived moments later, her guards rushing at her side. She saw the human standing, his sword dripping, his body broken, yet his gaze was unshaken. Steady as stone for the first time, she allowed a smile to touch her lips. "You see now," she said softly. "They cannot break you, and that is why they fear you." But she also knew this was only the beginning. If assassins dared strike within the palace, worse would soon follow. The nobles would not stop. The galaxy would not rest. The boy was no longer just a human, he had become a spark that could burn down empires or light the path to a new future. From that night forward, the whispers changed. Some aliens still mocked, but others began to watch with wary eyes. They no longer laughed when he stood in the training grounds. They no longer sneered when he raised his blade. Something had shifted, something dangerous. The human was not breaking, he was becoming, and in the shadows, the nobles planned their next move. But the princess's choice had already begun to take root. The galaxy had set its eyes on the youngest human warrior, and his training was no longer about survival. It was about preparing for the trial that would decide the fate of all. Shadows of betrayal, the palace at night was silent. But silence did not mean safety. Behind jeweled walls and golden doors, whispers carried like poison. The nobles gathered in secret halls, their faces hidden behind masks of silver and bone. They spoke of the princess with venom, but their hatred now had a single focus: the human boy, the one who should never have been chosen. "He grows stronger each day," one hissed, his eyes glowing under the crystal lamps. "If we allow this, the princess will use him as her weapon." "He is no weapon," another sneered. "He is a shadow, a weakness dressed as courage. But the third noble leaned closer, his voice cold. Even a shadow can frighten those who live in the light. We must cut him away before he becomes more than he is. The conspirators agreed, their plots weaving like a net. They bribed guards, hired assassins, spread rumors among the council. They whispered that the princess had been bewitched, that the humans carried forbidden powers. They claimed the boy was dangerous not because of strength, but because of defiance, and in the dark blades were sharpened. Waiting for the chance to strike, the young human felt the weight of unseen eyes wherever he walked. Every corridor seemed colder, every guard's stare sharper. Even some of his fellow humans avoided him, whispering behind his back. "He brings danger to us all," they said. "His choice will end in blood." The boy clenched his fists, but he never answered. He carried their doubts as he carried his scars. Quietly and without complaint, the princess noticed, her gaze sharper than any blade. "You are surrounded by enemies," she said one evening, as the two stood on the balcony overlooking the city of lights. "Some wear robes, some wear armor, some even wear the faces of friends." The boy lowered his head. "Then I will stand ready." Her lips curved into a shadow of a smile. "Do not only stand ready, young warrior. Stand unbroken." The test grew harsher, more cruel than before. He was sent into training chambers with impossible odds. 3 against 1, then 5 against 1, until his body was battered beyond recognition. Still he rose, his breathing heavy, his sword shaking but firm. And the princess watched with fire in her eyes. For every scar was proof of his spirit, every bruise was a story of defiance. But betrayal was not only in training halls or whispered chambers. One night a figure approached him. Cloaked in silver, the boy reached for his weapon, but the figure raised a hand. "Peace, human," the stranger said. "I bring a warning." The boy's eyes narrowed. Unsure whether to trust, the cloaked figure whispered, "They will not wait much longer. The nobles plot to end you during the council's next gathering." Then the figure vanished into the night, leaving only shadows behind. The boy carried the warning to the princess. Her face remained calm, though her eyes darkened. "I expected this," she said, her voice cold. "They fear you because you endure, and fear always breeds betrayal." The boy frowned. "Then what must I do?" Her answer was simple yet heavy. "Survive, and show them why I chose you." The day of the council gathering arrived. The great chamber was filled once more with nobles, warriors, and lords from across the stars. The princess stood tall, her crown gleaming, her chosen warrior at her side. But hidden among the guards, cloaked figures waited, blades hidden, poisons ready, their eyes locked on the human boy. The council leader raised his staff to begin, but before the words left his lips, chaos erupted. A guard lunged forward with a dagger, aimed straight at the boy's heart. In a blur, the boy moved. Instincts faster than thought, he twisted aside, the blade grazing his armor. The hall roared as more attackers struck. The nobles gasped, some in horror, others in secret delight. The boy fought with everything he had. He blocked, dodged, struck back with desperate strength. Every moment was survival, every strike another chance to fall. But he did not fall, even when outnumbered. Even when bleeding, he stood unbroken. The council watched in stunned silence as the human boy held his ground. Not as prey, not as weakness, but as fire. The princess stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Enough," she thundered, her power shaking the walls. Guards loyal to her surged forward, capturing the attackers, dragging them into the open. Their masks were torn away, revealing the faces of nobles who had sworn loyalty. Gasps filled the chamber. Trust shattered like glass. The princess turned her gaze across the hall, her voice a blade. "You see," she said, "even now, he endures what your strongest could not. You plot against him, and yet he still stands." Her hand rested on the boy's shoulder, his chest heaving, blood staining his armor. "He is mine, and through him humanity has earned its place." The chamber was silent, not out of respect but out of fear, for the betrayal had been revealed and the boy had survived it. And the galaxy realized something terrifying. The human was not breaking, he was rising. The trial of blood. The council chamber had not healed from the betrayal. Trust was shattered, loyalties broken. Whispers spread like fire through dry grass. But instead of peace, the nobles demanded more. They called for proof, a trial, something to show that the human boy was truly worthy. And so the council decreed the ancient rite. The trial of blood, it was an old law. Older than most empires. When a choice was challenged, the chosen must fight for survival. Not in secret, not in shadows, but before the eyes of the galaxy. Victory would silence doubt. Failure would mean death. The princess did not waver when the sentence was announced. Her voice was clear. So be it. Let the galaxy see. The boy stood silent as the words sank into his heart. A trial not against one, but against many. Champions from the strongest houses would stand against him. Each stronger, older, and far more skilled than he was. He had endured training, assassins, betrayal. But now he would stand in the open. With nowhere to hide, his breath was steady, though his chest was heavy with fear. The arena was carved from stone and fire. Crowds filled the seats, their voices a storm of doubt and curiosity. Some shouted insults, some shouted wagers. Few believed he would live past the first strike. The ground beneath his boots was marked with scars of countless battles. Blood had been spilled here for generations. Now his blood was expected to join it. The princess stood in the royal box above, her crown shining like a star. Her eyes did not leave him. Not for a moment. She had chosen him, and she would not turn away. But she knew the cost of this trial. Even if he survived, he would never leave this arena unchanged. The council leader raised his staff, his voice booming. Let the trial of blood begin. The gates opened, and the first champion stepped forward. A giant alien with skin of stone and a blade heavier than iron. The crowd roared as the boy raised his simple sword. The fight began. The first strike nearly broke him. The giant's blade crashed against his shield, sending him sprawling to the dirt. The crowd laughed, certain the fight was already over. But the boy rose, his breath ragged. His arms shaking, he dodged the next blow. Faster than the crowd expected, he struck back. His blade cutting shallow but true. The giant staggered, and the laughter faded, strike after strike. He endured, his body bruised, his strength fading, but his eyes burned brighter with every moment. At last the giant fell, his weapon crashing into the dirt. The crowd gasped, stunned into silence. The boy had survived the first champion. But the trial was not done. The gates opened again, and another warrior entered. This one swift as fire, blades in both hands, her movements sharp and deadly. The boy barely had time to breathe before the strikes came. He bled, his arms cut, his chest torn, but he did not fall. He blocked, dodged, and endured. And when the moment came, he struck with desperate strength. His blade found her side, and she fell to the dust. The crowd no longer laughed. They leaned forward, their voices hushed. Some began to whisper, "He cannot be killed." Others muttered, "He fights like a creature of his cursed world." Doubt turned to fear. One by one, more champions came, each stronger, each determined to break him, and one by one he stood against them. His body was battered, his blood stained the sand, but every time he rose, the crowd grew quieter, until silence spread across the arena like a wave. At last, the final champion stepped forward, a towering warrior clad in golden armor, the strongest of the empires. Undefeated in 100 battles, the boy could barely stand, his arms heavy, his vision blurred. But when the warrior charged, he raised his blade once more. The clash shook the arena, sparks flying as steel met steel. The boy fought with nothing left but will. Every strike rattled his bones. Every fall crushed his spirit, yet he rose again and again. The golden warrior struck him down once more. The boy's blood pooled beneath him. His strength nearly gone, but his eyes still burned. Refusing to close with one final burst, he moved faster than thought. He dropped low, his blade striking where the golden armor was weakest. The warrior staggered, fell to his knees. The boy collapsed beside him. But the fight was over. Silence filled the arena, broken only by the sound of his ragged breath. The princess rose from her seat, her voice thundered, "You see now? He is no mistake, he is no weakness, he is mine. And through him, humanity claims its place." The crowd erupted, not in laughter or scorn, but in awe. The boy had survived the trial of blood, and the galaxy, for the first time, feared what humanity could become. The warriors claim the arena floor was stained with blood. The sand clung to the boy's wounds, each breath sharp as fire. He could barely stand, yet he did not fall. The silence of the crowd pressed down like a mountain. No one laughed, no one mocked, not anymore. The golden warrior, the final champion, lay defeated at his feet. The boy's blade trembled in his hand, yet it had struck true. The galaxy had seen what no one believed possible. A human child, untested and unworthy in their eyes, had endured every challenge and still stood alive. Above the arena, the princess stepped forward. Her silver crown shimmered beneath the light of the twin suns. Her eyes burned with pride and defiance. She looked not at the nobles, not at the warriors, but at her chosen, the boy who now carried the weight of empires. She raised her hand, her voice echoing across the stone walls. You demanded proof, and now you have it. You called him weak. Yet he has broken your strongest. You called him unworthy. Yet he still stands when your champions lie in the dust. Her words cut deeper than any blade. The nobles lowered their eyes, for they could not deny the truth. The boy lifted his head, his vision blurred. He searched the princess's gaze and found only fire in that moment. He understood. This was not only her victory, this was humanity's claim. The galaxy had witnessed what humans truly were. Not fragile, not prey, but something relentless. Something unstoppable. The council leader rose, his stone staff shaking in his hands. By law, the trial is complete, he declared. By blood and endurance, the human has proven his worth. The words spread through the arena. Heavy and final, what had begun as a mockery had now become law. But the princess was not done. She stepped to the edge of her royal balcony. Her voice thundered like a storm, carried to every corner of the galaxy. He is mine, she declared, her hand pointing toward the young warrior. By my right as princess, by my crown and by my blood, he is mine. The words shook the crowd louder than any roar of battle. Some gasped in shock, some shouted in rage, but many sat silent, gripped by awe and fear. For they realized this was not the end. This was the beginning of something greater. The rise of a species that would not be ignored. The boy dropped to one knee, bowing his head not out of weakness. But out of honor he did not speak, for his body was broken and his throat dry. But his silence spoke louder than any words could. It was the silence of acceptance, of duty, of a warrior who would carry the burden. The princess descended from her throne. She walked across the arena floor. Each step echoing when she reached him. She placed her hand upon his shoulder. Her touch was light, but her presence carried the weight of empires. Together, they stood in the center of the arena, and the galaxy watched in silence. Beyond the arena walls, messages spread like fire across star systems. Across fleets, across worlds, every empire heard the same truth. The princess of the greatest house had chosen a human, and the human had survived the trial of blood. In dark chambers, nobles whispered of war. In military halls, generals planned new strategies. On alien thrones, rulers clenched their fists. They could no longer laugh at humanity. They could no longer dismiss them as weak, for humanity had bled, endured, and risen. The princess lifted her voice once more. You see now what I have always known. Strength is not only in size, nor in age, nor in tradition. Strength is in the fire that refuses to die. And in this boy, in this human, that fire burns brighter than stars. The crowd rose, some in fury, some in awe. The sound thundered across the arena, a storm of voices, but through the noise, one truth remained unshaken. The galaxy had witnessed the claim. The galaxy had witnessed the rise. The boy stood at her side, his eyes steady despite the blood. He was no longer just a warrior, no longer just a human. He was a symbol, a spark, a shadow turned into fire. The princess had claimed him, but through her, humanity had claimed its place. And so as the sun set over the arena, the galaxy stood in shock, for in the silence between the roars they all understood. Humanity would never be forgotten again. The youngest warrior had survived. The princess had declared him hers. And the future of empires had been changed forever.